Ask any questions during your presentation. And your project should be presented in the following order: the site plan, the elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. The staff will then present their staff report, and we will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as your presentation was made. When coming to the microphone, please state and spell your name clearly if you're here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following the public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. We will then close the public hearing, and the only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of the City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, the Historic Preservation Development Review, or HPDRC comments, and the testimony given at today's public hearing. Please remember that the ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners and/or agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. Now, if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones, and I will ask my fellow commissioners to ask themselves, starting on my left.
Good evening. I'm Ashley DeCubis. I'm an attorney.
I'm John Prokop. I practice architecture.
Dan Myers, architect.
Stephen Sutton, architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair.
Brent Taylor, I'm a contractor.
And tonight, our legal representative is Kamari Pattis-Meckel. And then we have tonight Ron Vila and Elaine Lunn, as well as Aminta Owens. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot today was Monday. If we could begin with, if you could please, we have the minutes from the June 6th and June 8th, 2022 public hearings to review and approve.
I move that the minutes for for the ARC meeting of June 6th and June 8th, 2022 be accepted as presented.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Nay. Seeing none, motion carries.
Good afternoon, Councilor Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving down the agenda to announcements, we are having our Wednesday public hearing, July 13th at 5:30 p.m. in the chambers. We do have a full agenda. Moving to conflicts of interest and ex parte communication, we have our legal advisor.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kamaria Pettis-Meckel from the City Attorney's Office. Excuse me. Will the Commissioners please state whether or not they have any conflicts of interest regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
I have none.
None.
Thank you. Will the Commissioners also please state whether or not we've had any ex parte communications regarding any of the items that are on the agenda?
I've had
No.
none.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Under continuations, we have none reflected for tonight's agenda. Moving to the swear-in, Ms. Vance will swear everybody is in. Please stand up and raise your right hand if you wish to testify.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any test? Do you need to swear?
Are you guys going to speak? No. Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or, now you've got me wrong. Do you solemnly swear or testify that any comments you will be giving today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you. So we have one request before we get started, that the agenda be amended. The first case and the second case wish to flip-flop. The two agents for the cases have discussed it, and they are all in favor of this changing of the agenda items. So we'll need a motion to move forward. So that's for the first case that's reflected on the agenda as ARC 22-231/REZ 21-87 for the address of 1910 Ola. And the second case reflected as ARC 22-268/VAC 22-12 for the address of 110 East Oak Avenue. If I could get a motion to change those in the order of the agenda.
I move to adjust the agenda so that ARC case 22-268 should be moved to the first position and the other cases adjusted accordingly.
I will second that motion.
I think we have to be clear in that you have to say that the first one goes behind the second,
You
correct?
want, just to clarify from staff, and I don't know if the first case that's on the agenda, if it is going, does that want to go second or does it want to go third?
To the second position, and
Okay.
everybody's here if you wish to ask them, what their position is.
To the second, you're agreeing to go to the second? Okay, so if you could just have a motion.
Just amend the motion.
Okay. I will amend the motion such that ARC 22-268 becomes first, and ARC 22-231 takes second position in tonight's agenda.
I will also second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye. Aye. See no opposition, the motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioner. So with the agenda that we have this evening, we will start with ARC 22-268/VAC 22-12 for the address of 110 East Oak Avenue. Elaine Lund will show you the photo presentation at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. Elaine Lund, ARC staff. As stated, the first case this evening is ARC 22-268/VAC 22-12 at 110 East Oak Avenue. This is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District. Actually, a portion of the request is located in the Tampa Heights Historic District, and a portion of it is located outside the district. However, the request still needs to be reviewed by this board for a recommendation to City Council. Your charge is to find whether or not it is consistent with Chapter 27-113A2J of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. I'm going to move to the photo presentation to illustrate better the request for you. If we look at the, do you have the map? Okay. In front of you is the Tampa Heights Historic District map with the outline of the local historic district shown in red and the outline of the National Register Historic District shown in blue. The area in green is the area that is this subject area of the request for tonight. The particular area of the request is south of Palm Avenue and north of Oak Avenue, including portions of Franklin Street that extend north from Oak and east and west to Palm Avenue, and also an alley that extends from Franklin Street west to North Tampa Street. In 1889, actually, this area was platted and filed with the county clerk. The area that is outlined in green shows you the portion of the Highland Park First Edition where the request is. It is in block 16 of this particular plat. You can see that at the time there was clearly no Y-shaped right-of-way at that location. This is the 1920s Sanborn map showing the area of the request in green and showing you where the local historic district boundary is in the red line. Again, coming up from Oak Avenue, following Franklin Street north, and then angling off to the west and the east toward Palm Avenue, and directly west for the alley portion toward North Tampa Street. This is the 1951 Sanborn map showing you the same area. The area where the block where the subject property is outlined in green for you. You can see that 1951, which is after the period of significance for this historic district, even at that point, the Y-shape roadway did not exist. This is a 1957 aerial. I'm just showing you this one so you can compare it to the 1965 aerial. The road in this area was redone in 1964, so that's from when this particular angling of the roadway dates. And then the 1976 map shows you how that was laid out in relation to the historic district and the buildings that are in it. Looking at the photos of the area, and this photo is looking from the intersection of Oak Avenue and Franklin Street north toward Palm Avenue. Moving a little more north, this is getting close to the Y intersection. So you can see Palm Avenue beyond the top of the Y. This is looking at the west side of the Y, looking at the property that's north of Oak, east of Tampa, south of Palm, and sort of south in west of Franklin Street. In this picture, you can see the alley portion that is requested to be vacated, running along the north side of that parking lot. This picture is looking northwest from the intersection of the Y toward the corner of Tampa Street and Palm Avenue. This picture is looking northeast toward the intersection of Florida Avenue and Palm Avenue. This is the Standard Oil Building, a historic structure, a contributing structure in the Tampa Heights Historic District, which is located in the southeast corner of the block in which the vacating request is located. And looking south now from just a little south of the Y intersection, you can see downtown beyond, past Oak Street. This is Oak Avenue, Oak Avenue, the portion of it looking west from Franklin Street. And that concludes the photo presentation. So at this time, I'll ask the agent for the applicant to come forward and present the request.
You're doing a PowerPoint, right?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tyler Hudson, and my address is 400 North Ashley Drive. It's an honor to be here this evening on behalf of the Tampa Metropolitan YMCA, which is the applicant for this right-of-way vacating. Can you see a PowerPoint on your screens?
Can't see it.
Probably working on
We
this
sort that out. I'll
switch.
do quick introductions. With me here this evening is Alex Shaler, a civil engineer with my law firm, Chris Kirshner, an architect with BDG, and Matt Mitchell, who's the president of the Tampa Metro YMCA. This is going to be an extremely brief presentation, and then I'm going to have Matt come up to talk a little bit about why we're asking for this vacating, and I'd like to thank you for allowing us for the switch on the agenda.
We can
you guys
see
see
your
that?
presentation now.
Okay, great. Elaine did a great job of covering the Sanborns, which I'm going to reiterate very briefly, but while this is up, this is sort of the cleanest depiction of the somewhat unusual block. As Elaine noted, this is not natural from the period of significance in the historic district. Not really sure why it was created. In terms of how this actually operates now, you can go north on Franklin Street. That's the north-south running street. But when you try to go right to the diagonal, that's actually now dead-ended. So you're sort of stuck, which if anyone lives in Tampa Heights like I do, you forget that and you get stuck quite often. If you go up to the west, you can't do that. That's really one way coming back downwards. The goal, and again, we're here simply to seek a recommendation to City Council in anticipation of our July 28th hearing on the right-of-way vacating. This is not connected with a simultaneous rezoning, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is when Matt gets up to speak. I would note, though, that while we are seeking to get rid of the Y shape that's coincidentally in front of the YMCA, as well as the east-west running alley that is to the west of Franklin Street, we're not proposing the creation of a giant super block. We're certainly aware that can be a sensitivity with this commission. What we're proposing to do, and just so you know, from a safeguard perspective, the city is going to require a transportation easement back over all of the portion that we are vacating. And once that's accomplished in connection with the rezoning, we'll go through the release of easement process to dial this in. But the goal is that Franklin Street would continue northward to Palm, albeit slimmed down, not for vehicular traffic. The reason for that is the YMCA, and again, we just sorted out the specific details, but we've been talking to the city for 2 years now about conveying to the city, either by an easement or a dedication, a strip that runs southerly congruent along Palm Avenue for the streetcar. We know that the Tampa streetcar is going to go up to Palm Avenue. The question was whether it was going to go in front of the Bob Gilbertson Y that's there now on the north side of Palm, or whether it was going to go contraflow against the flow of traffic along the southern portion, southerly of Palm Avenue, and it sounds like the city's preference is for it to go there. We're okay with that, as Matt will talk about. We think would be an incredible asset to have this close to the YMCA. So that's generally where this is going. It's not at a place now where those details are fully baked, because those will likely develop in conjunction with an eventual rezoning or redevelopment of the property. But candidly, and Matt will talk more about this, it looks a little goofy right now. It's tough to get developers to take a real significant interest in what it might look like to develop it with this very unusual configuration. So this is the first step. As Elaine alluded to, a portion of this block is in a historic district. To the extent any of that is redeveloped, we will be back here for that. But this is just a very preliminary step. I'm happy to answer any questions. I would note that we do have staff approval, which we've worked very hard to get. And with that, I'd like to have Matt come up a little bit, talk about why we're asking for this. Thanks.
Good evening, Matt Mitchell. I'm the President and CEO of the Tampa Metro Area YMCA. I reside at 3112 West Fair Oaks Ave, and my place of employment is at 110 East Oak Avenue. As you can see, we are grossly underutilizing this property right now. And this is really just the first step for us to be able to start to conceptualize with developers, what can we really do with this location. We have no interest at all at leaving Tampa Heights. We've been there for decades and decades and decades, and it's a very important community to us. What we want to do is do something to add to the vibrancy of this community, to add to the richness, the quality of life for people who live, work, and play there. This is a YMCA right now across the street on Palm that probably loses around $350,000 to $500,000 a year, and it was always intended to do that. It was intended to serve the families in some of the transitional neighborhoods in Tampa Heights, but this community is gentrifying now. We have to do a lot different things to help invest in this community, and this is one of those things, is to develop some energy and growth right in front of our YMCA, and that's why we're really in favor of the streetcar coming up too. Hey, to bring people from downtown and drop them off right in front of our location, it's fantastic. So whatever we can do to help add to the mobility of our community, to get to the YMCA, enjoy Tampa Heights, and then do something with our property to again, to add to that richness of experience for people to come there is really our intention. We have no intention of selling this property. We have every intention to doing what we can to work with a individual, a developer that has experience in this realm to, again, add to the vibrancy and the richness of this community. With that, that's all I have to say. We hope to do, I guess, a little bit more detail. We would do some type of a ground lease. We're not developers, but there's people who do this really well. Some type of a ground lease that creates some sort of an annuity for the YMCA, that we would in turn take that money and reinvest it into our properties and our facilities. And even as this YMCA becomes less and less of a mission Y, meaning a subsidized YMCA, to look where else in Tampa needs a YMCA where we can serve kids and families that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to go to a Y. Right now, for example, we go to Sulphur Springs. We're there every day. We run a community school. We have a mobile veggie van, a mobile produce van that goes up and drops off fresh fruits and vegetables for families. But we go there every morning and we leave every night. It's different for a kid. If you're living in Sulphur Springs, you look up and you have a YMCA logo glowing in your backyard. And that's the type of margin and resources that this type of development will help the YMCA drive, so we can invest in those areas that need $750,000 a year to invest in subsidies just to keep the doors open. So this is something, again, that will not only add to the vibrancy and richness of this local community right here, but also enable us to reinvest in other communities that otherwise couldn't afford a great YMCA experience. Thank you.
Anyone else want to to present for the owner? Okay. We'll have the staff present the report.
Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. Staff finds that this application is consistent with the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances in accordance with Chapter 27-113A2J. The Y shape in the right-of-way is not part of the originally platted street grid, and it does not date from the historic period of significance for the Tampa Heights Historic District. As far as conditions, we had requested to see where the required easements would be going on the plan. I'm not certain that those are fully established yet, however. And we would like to make sure that it is noted that the recommendation of the ARC related to the vacating request does not imply support for future redevelopment of the site that adversely affects the historic resources in proximity to the right-of-way. Any future development along this corridor shall preserve and respect the circa 1928 Standard Oil Building located at 110 East Oak Avenue, the same address as this request, a contributing structure to the locally designated and National Register listed Tampa Heights Historic Districts. And I'm available if you have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lund. We'll go ahead and ask for public comment if anyone would like to come forward and speak either for or against this item. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close that portion, and commissioners will begin asking questions if anyone has a question for the applicant.
The only thing would be the easement plan that she mentioned, if you have any more details about that.
Tyler Hudson for the record. Right now, the easements will be the same exact as the right-of-way vacated area. As far as how those get released into future zoning or permitting, we're not really sure yet, but just for your purposes, know that an easement will be granted back to the city for transportation over the entire extent of right-of-way that's being vacated, since we do need to sort out some of those details.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are there utilities in these? Are there utilities involved in this area?
The only city department we're still working through is on solid waste. As you can imagine, they're a little bit confused by the request because, again, typically these are paired with a rezoning, so you can see what's being taken away, what's being put back. So we're working through those and are confident that we'll get those resolved prior to the 28th.
And do you know, apparently the entire block was owned by Standard Oil at one point, and in one of the aerials, it appears as though there may be an industrial use that was happening. It seems the houses have gone away and there's a bunch of shadowy little stuff back there. Do you have any idea what was going on back there?
I do not. Chris, do you know what it is? Sorry, we do not know at this time.
And at this time, no one has. You've not done any soil borings to know if there was an industrial impact on the soils there that may cause them to need to be taken away and replaced.
Not yet, Commissioner. That's actually a great question because that's exactly the type of due diligence on the site that it's been tough to motivate folks to do while the right-of-way configurations in its existing pattern. So I think that'll be coming though.
Okay, thank you.
I'm glad to see the YMCA representative here. Is how much of this site overall is owned by the YMCA currently?
85% of it. There's a portion that's south of the East Westerly right-of-way that's adjacent to Tampa Street is not owned by the YMCA.
Okay, so they own
The street above the letter E and the word Oak on the map that's in front of you.
Is there any map or designation of the ownership?
I don't have an ownership map. No, it's the parcel that again is the southwesterly block. Platted lots of the block are not owned by the YMCA. The remainder of the site is.
So an L-shaped north half and eastern half?
Can you see my cursor? It's so you can see the entire block. If you go to the most southwesterly point, that's the southwest corner of a platted lot. That's not owned by the YMCA.
That's not owned. Okay. So, but the rest is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Also, I guess there was a mention of the continuation of Franklin, but only in a pedestrian standpoint is a future intent, not
Yes.
vehicular. So would the southern, I guess at Oak Avenue, the intention currently is that all vehicular traffic would stop at Oak?
Yes, that's correct. That's what we've talked about with the city. The reason for that is, first, if you continued Franklin all the way to Palm, it would run into where the city appears to want a streetcar station.
Right.
And I think it would create some challenges in terms of, you know, the ride out that you'd have to do there. And we also think, just from the perspective of having two buildings, perhaps more, if there's some type of connection with a skywalk or anything like that, having that really just for pedestrian, bicyclist, maybe life safety. I mean, maybe there's bollards for that, but having two-way traffic, we think would not suit the site well.
I understand. And I mean, I would concur, because historically Franklin ended at Oak.
Right.
You know,
And it probably wouldn't be
throughout
called,
the maps.
It probably won't be called Franklin Street. It would really just be, you know, some type of, bike pedestrian, like a muse.
Franklin Mall.
Franklin Mall,
something.
Franklin Muse perhaps, or something like
Okay.
that, but, that's the plan.
All
for
right,
now.
that's all I have.
Any other questions?
I have none.
Okay, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if there's anything you'd like to add.
For these zoning and right-of-way matters, this commission's charge is obviously recommending, quote, reasonable land use regulations, and we think that's exactly what this is. We think it's unreasonable in its current configuration, and it's gonna allow us to bring a development product back to you in the future that really honors the district much better. Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll discuss the case. Any points, salient points that anyone wants to make? None? Anyone want to entertain a motion? I would like to bring to your attention, before doing so, the conditions on the staff report. The last item, which Ms. Lund read about our historic resources and being respectful and maintaining those.
Kamari, this is just a recommendation. Thank you. I move to make a recommendation I move to recommend City Council approve ARC 22-268/VAC 2212 for the property located at 110 East Oak Avenue for the proposed rezoning from, to vacate the right-of-way for with the following conditions. That this recommendation of the ARC related to the vacating request does not imply support for redevelopment of the site that adversely affects the historic resources in proximity to the right-of-way. And any future development along this corridor shall preserve and respect the 1928 Standard Oil Building located at 110 East Oak Avenue, a contributing structure to the locally designated and National Register listed Tampa Heights Historic District, for the reasons that this is a reasonable land use change.
I will second that motion.
You understand the conditions put forth, Mr. Hudson? Okay, we'll go ahead and vote then. All in favor, please state aye and indicate so by raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Seeing unanimous, your motion carries. Thank you. Congratulations.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Moving to our next agenda item, which is ARC 22-231/REZ 21-87. This is for the master address that's associated with this request at 1910 North Ola Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant parcel with the underlying zoning of CI. This is for a recommendation as well. It's for a rezoning from the CI to a PDA. PDA is usually a larger request with minimum of 45 acres as it moves forward. This is a small portion of an overall request that the agent will go through, but then I want them to focus on track 3 that you'll see that's apparent in the request this evening. Once again, your duties and powers are under Chapter 27, 113A2J. Moving through the photo presentation. This is approximately in the same location of what you just saw on the previous one. I labeled some of the streets with you to give you a point of reference. Property in question is an empty parcel. and the large arrow indicates where it's at. On the southern boundary, there's 7th Avenue. Towards the north, there's Oak. To the west, it flanks Tampa Street, and to the east, you have, Tampa Street, and then to the east, you have Franklin Street. You see the vicinity map here. The red indicates the Tampa Heights Historic District outline, and the green, obviously, is the property in question. This is the 1929 Sanborn map, showing the population in 1929. North is up. Property in question is on the corner of Tampa Street and Oak. As a reference point, you have 7th Avenue to the south, and then you have Franklin Street to the east. There are 2 contributing structures within that block that I'll show you some photos as well. Part of the request moving forward is that, that this project does not negatively affect those 2 historic structures. The building that you just looked at as a reference point, the Standard Oil building's over here. So this vicinity is really moving forward. This is a current aerial. The vicinity map showed the boundaries of Tampa Heights coming through here and then up Tampa Street. Everything to the west of Tampa Street is outside. This is new construction that's associated with the armature complex. Property in question is highlighted in the green area. Once again, you have 7th Avenue. You have Tampa Street running north and south. You have Oak on the northern boundary. There is one alley that's still open that runs between the Free Library, Giant Oil, and then the property here, and I'll show you some pictures. But these are the 2 contributing structures within the Tampa Heights Historic District. This is just looking back at the vacant site. This is from Tampa Street. Looking to the east, you see the Standard Oil building in the background. Just a little different perspective. This is looking a little bit more to the north. Once again, Tampa Street, which is a one-way street leading into downtown. This is the one alley that I spoke about. This is the Free Library. This is the Giant Oil building. There are some historic resources in here. We do have some brick and some granite curbing. Looking from the alley, looking to the north at the subject site. To get you a little familiar with the contributing structure, this is Giant Oil. This is the alley that runs between Giant Oil, the Free Library, and to the southern portion of the subject site. This is looking at the east elevation and the south elevation. Focusing on the front elevation, which is the east, and the north elevation. Moving around to the rear. Then focusing on the Free Library. This is the front elevation, 2-story building. It's facing south. This is a portion of that south elevation and the elevation that faces Tampa Street. And this is the Tampa Street elevation, the alley, and then the rear elevation. Directly across Tampa Street, that is outside the district. You have a parking garage with some retail on the main level. And then just to conclude, to get you refamiliar with the site, trying to walk you around Tampa Street, 7th Avenue, the alley that runs between the subject site and the 2 contributing structures, Franklin and then Oak. That concludes my photo presentation. I have these if you need additional reference.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Catherine Coyle. I'm with Urban Planning Innovations, 5312 North Swanee Avenue, Tampa, Florida 33603, and I'm here as the agent for Riverside Heights Holdings. Thank you to Ron and to Dennis and to staff for all their hard work on this.
just to focus in on the site plan first. And as Ron mentioned, what I'll do is I'll try to be as brief as possible and hone in on tract 3 itself, which is really the piece of this rezoning. The site plan itself is a 5-page site plan. This rezoning has a fairly long history with the city. The first rezoning for this overall parcel was 2006. That was rezoned again when it changed hands in 2013. And then it was rezoned again in 2018 when additional land was added. And then again today with a couple additional pieces being added, including the subject piece that's within the Tampa Heights Historic District. One nice thing about this plan is each iteration, it gets more and more refined, and it actually tracks all incremental approvals. It tracks every tree that has come out. It tracks every single thing. So you can look at this 5-page document and actually get a very clear history of all approvals, which is actually very nice to administer. This is sheet 2. This is the subject parcel here on the east side of Tampa. And you can see it in relation to the overall 53.5 acre parcel. Sheet 2 specifically spells out a development entitlement chart going by tract, and it also, as I said, highlights all incremental approvals with everything that's been approved, with entitlements, case numbers, dates of approval, the whole 9 yards, which is very unique to this particular project. Sheet 3, for reference, is the tree boundary survey, tree and topo survey. It tracks every single tree on the entire property from beginning through today, grand and otherwise, and the disposition of each tree. Sheet 4 is the graphical representation of the Heights Community Design Standards. Each roadway, because they did create additional roadways through the plat for the Heights, each roadway has a designation, whether it's an avenue, a boulevard, so on, local street, alley, and they have cross sections with setbacks, build-to lines, how it interfaces, each frontage of each building interfaces with the public realm, and then along with a cross-section of a typical sidewalk plan and how each area is carved out for sidewalk cafes, building frontages, and public realm integration. It's a slightly more blown-up version of the building frontages. Specifically on this sheet, you'll notice tract B, there is a site plan layout and there is an elevation. This is just a blown-up version of it. And my client worked with Ron and Dennis on building separation. This is the free library to the south. And this is the giant oil building. This is the alley that runs through here. At the 3-story level, and I'll show it to you in the elevation, where this extension of the free library is sticking out here at a 0 lot line along the alley, that is the closest point to the 3-story similar building height, and that is approximately 26-foot separation. Where the free library steps in and above the 3-story elevation on this building, we're committing to approximately 36 feet, and then 46 feet above that. You can see it a little bit better vertically here. This is that portion of the building that he showed you that had the 3 levels of windows. This is the alley. This is the only portion here that's at that similar level. The rest of the building is stepped back. It's between 44 and 46 feet at its furthest point. And the final page of the site plan goes through site data, landscape, calculations, roadway design standards, and there is a schedule of dimensional regulations and the overall description and language for the community design standards. Specific to this particular piece of property, free library, I mentioned 26 feet up to 46 feet with the recesses and the separations. It's approximately 16 feet at its closest corner in the rear to the giant oil building, and it's only the notch of that one particular building, or this building, because this is a very narrow building here. So it's this little notch right here that's approximately 16 feet, and the rest of it steps away and then in. Along the Tampa Street frontage, we are holding between 0 and 10 feet. And along Oak, we're holding to between 8 and 18.5, which is the same requirement on the remainder of Oak that runs through the rest of the property in the design standards. Let's see. Really quick, I would like to go through photos. Ron showed you the aerial. I did walk the site. I didn't measure it, but I did basically map out these green lines. There's almost a full segment of varying heights of granite curb. It gets up to 10 or 12 inches in some spots, and then it drops down really low to 3 or 4 inches. It's varying. There's approximately 3 segments here. It's been filled in by DOT over the years with concrete. And there is a small section here that used to be next to the old auto repair. We have every intent to follow the standards for this, and incorporating these and reusing these materials per code, along with the certificate of appropriateness. And if there's any surplus materials that we're unable to use, we're going to follow the code and relinquish them back to the city or supplement with whatever's available in the inventory. Looking north from the site, you can actually see that's a concrete section right there, and that's granite. This is looking north, like kind of in the middle of the site. This is that building, the office building, at the corner of Palm and Tampa. This is standing kind of across from that building, looking south, just to give it perspective. The overall height proposed on this is, it's from the lowest point to the top would be 86 feet. There is a 4 to 6 foot grade change. So just as you probably noticed with the office building that is here, because there is a pretty steep grade change too, the building cuts into the grade. So if you measure it from here to the top, it's not 84 to 86 feet. It's 84 to 86 on this side. Same here, it'll cut into the grade because there is quite a grade change on this property. Again, this is looking south. You got your free library here, giant oil building across the street. This is standing in the property, almost kind of center northern third, looking straight down Oak. This is Oak here. So this is the view from the site. This is standing back across the street, looking back towards the free library, but this gives you the view of the alley itself. And there is some patchwork in there with some miscellaneous asphalt and such. Let's see, this is a slightly different view from the corner. This would be the northwest corner of the property looking back towards the free library. The giant oil building, and this is looking back at Oak. So due east. And you can see how it goes kind of straight up. Let's see. Going through all the conditions in the staff report, I believe I've highlighted all of them. And as far as the PDA condition note 73, we've had conversations with staff, and we agree. Just to go back to the ARC, we can amend the condition as stated. Implementing this in particular, because this is a PDA, which Ron mentioned, it's not one that you see very often. It's an umbrella plan, essentially. There is a process in the code for zoning purposes that a specific plan comes in through an incremental review process. And I discussed this with Dennis on processing, and we were thinking that we probably submit for both at the same time. So we submit for incremental, and we submit to you at the same time. That way you see everything as it unfolds, and we can adjust accordingly and get our certificate of appropriateness and the staff review for all other technical standards at the same time. We respectfully request your approval for this, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Go ahead and present the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservations. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Code of Ordinances under Chapter 27, 113, A2J. I'm going to read that Code of Ordinances to you with regards to the application for rezoning, land use change classifications, or comprehensive plan amendments to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve the historic integrity and appearance of the historic district. The conditions are as follows on page 3 of your staff report. Ms. Coyle went through the conditions in her presentation. Bullet item number 3 and number 4 touch upon the design book. The design book was entered into the record on page 4 of what she presented today. It showed some of the street elevations, it showed the setbacks, and it showed the massing. Along with the massing, we had some early discussions as far as to not negatively affect the historic fabric that's in the area, and they pulled the building away as page 4 illustrated on the documents presented this evening. Our main concern is that the PDA would come back to the ARC, so they got another bite at the apple. It was in discussion until a little while ago. Ms. Coyle stated that they're willing to come forward, so if there's some language that needs to be put into the motion adhering to that, it be either removed or amended as this project moves forward. That concludes my portion. I'm here to answer any questions.
And Mr. Vila, Kamari Pettis-Macker from the City Attorney's Office, you're referencing the note number 73, correct?
Note number 73 on the waiver, yes.
And does staff have recommendations as far as, is the recommendation from staff to remove that condition entirely, or?
Well, that waiver states that they could bypass the ARC in the future coming forward. So I think they either remove it or amend it to say that they will be consistent with Chapter 27, 115, that states that a project of this size, that the ARC has jurisdiction over that project moving forward.
Thank you, Ron, and thank you, Kamaria. All right, if anyone is here to speak for or against this project, please do come forward at this time. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead and close that portion, and then we will begin asking questions. Anyone with a question for the agent?
I would like to begin, please, with a question to staff. Actually, a couple different questions. First of all, ordinarily, when we see a rezoning case with respect to a PD type, it's usually tied into a particular manner of an architectural presentation of what the intended development is going to be, with the intention that that final design will come back to us as part of an appropriateness. How is this PDA different from that process?
A PDA is going to come forward to you again through these increment changes. At this time, they call it a bubble plan, that you're getting very cryptic information moving forward. They talked about the setbacks, and then they showed a massing model. That's sufficient at this particular time. Additional information will come to you at a later date.
When we present a motion for this, are we to add that language that this is an incremental land use change?
That's part of this review. That's what a PDA's review is for these increment changes.
Thank you very much.
I just want to be clear, but we don't have to state that in the motion. It's inherent in the code.
It's understood. That's
Yes.
correct.
So you don't have to add that into the language.
Okay.
Any other questions for the agent or staff?
Yeah, I had one for the agent. You did bring up that there were going to be fire separation issues dealt with in the architecture, but that buildings would be less than 30 feet apart. There's glazing and windows on both historic buildings facing that alley that would be less than 30 feet apart. And it's my understanding that there's a separation code that requires at least 30. I might be incorrect in this case, but that would be a concern I'd like to see addressed.
And, well, in this I appreciate the comment. In this particular instance, because this is just a schematic layout, there is not refined design of the building itself. We have to meet the rules and regulations once we come through the incremental review. We'll get a full fire review at that point, as well as a full review from your staff and the recommendation, not the recommendation, but the actual certificate of appropriateness. So you'll get a full architectural presentation in that process.
Okay.
And we can't get out of those requirements, basically. In the schematic that's shown, that back corner that is closest to the giant oil building is loading. So more than likely, it's gonna have a solid wall at that point, and not to affect the glazing on the other side.
But both buildings have to be separated. That's the problem, is that both buildings have to be separated from each other, and if there's glazing on the historic building, it can't be within 30 feet. Okay, that's
Okay.
the only question I have.
Excuse me, I have a question about the north end. Could you bring up the plan for
Yes.
the bubble plan for the area at Oak Street?
The bubble plan or
Well, what you've
this
shown
layout?
here,
Okay.
what you've shown there, yeah. Okay, so that the vehicular area that you're showing there at Oak Avenue is covered? I see some dashed lines above it, and
Yes.
I'm not,
Yes, if you look at the elevation, it's.
oh, okay.
Those are the columns there.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any idea what the possible use would be for this tract?
Hotel.
Hotel?
Mhm.
Okay.
It's a smaller boutique style hotel, it's under 200 rooms. I think it's about 145, I believe.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
No further questions.
Any other questions? I do have one for staff just to confirm. PDA is just like the regular PD. They are setting their height with this motion today, and they're setting their setbacks.
They've indicated on page 4 their setbacks. She went through that through her presentation, and she talked about the height, the proximity to the historic buildings, and then how it's gonna step up as it gets away.
Right, those were from the design book, but on her plan, she had specific setbacks, and then she also had the heights on the specific for this tract. So what she showed us today sets the height and sets the setbacks from those buildings as well as the setbacks for the property line.
That's the
correct?
envelope that will be used as she moves forward.
I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Ms. Coyle, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal if you want to use it.
Technically not a rebuttal, but just to make it clear for the record, for legal purposes, back to the condition note number 73. We're okay either way as well, but an amendment to the note, if you would choose to amend it, it would simply be changing out historic preservation staff to be reading, providing authority for the Architectural Review Commission, because it already references chapter 27, article 5. So it's really up to you which way you want to go on that one.
Go ahead, Dennis. Hi, Dennis.
Just as your Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager, the note does read that, but it also reads that you would be using a different set of resources to evaluate the property. You would want to make sure that that's the Tampa Heights Historic District Design Guidelines that you would be using under your review authority.
Since we don't have that particular note in front of us, I don't have a photographic memory.
I would
Can somebody
prefer-
give us that note, or can we just strike it
If,
from the plans?
I would prefer just to say strike it, because it's written as a waiver.
Okay,
So it would make most sense just to prove it with a condition to remove it. And we, as the applicant, agree to that condition.
okay, so we'll just strike it from we'll ask for it to be removed, okay.
As a condition to remove
Correct,
waiver. Yep.
to the motion today, yep. And that completes your rebuttal, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we'll discuss the case if anybody has anything that we should consider.
I have a disappointment
Okay,
at this point in time. I understand the interim, if you're not preliminary nature of this PD zoning request. But I have received this evening a certain indication of a development bubble for this parcel. Setbacks at height, you know, establishing that volume to which they can build into. And for me right now, that bubble relatively dwarfs the contributing structures that are already on site. And I have an appropriateness issue with that. Now, I understand that we're going to be going on forward for a certificate of appropriateness at some point in time with respect to the development of this parcel. But I think already the door is open for this starting on the wrong foot.
Is your main concern the height?
Height.
Mine is.
I also am concerned about the height as well as, I guess, a deflection, you know, to the adjacency of a building, setting back a portion of the building that's the same height as the historic property, only a handful of feet, and saying that, you know, then we can go to 80.
Now,
within a few feet.
Now, they establish a volume as part of this PD.
Right.
If they come back with let's say, a development that is less than those limits that they've established as part of this PD, something that may be more appropriate to the historic resources that are on this lot, that'd be something to take into account. Obviously, they can't exceed the limits they established by this site plan review.
But we're handcuffing ourselves.
We
by
potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Potentially, yes. That's my fear. Now, I understand from the photographs and the record that presentations that, you know, immediately adjacent development in the Tampa Heights non-historic district are much larger and much more contemporary in their scale than we are accustomed to, because we are smack dab right on that boundary. I think we have a duty to insist on some manner of respect to the historic resources of Tampa Heights.
I'd agree.
Does anyone up here know the height that could happen on the current zoning?
Can you speak a little bit louder?
Does anyone on the board up here know the height that could
I don't know that. We could ask staff if we reopen the hearing.
Right, that's why I'm asking.
Would you like to reopen the hearing to
Please.
ask staff? I have a motion, please, to reopen the hearing. Somebody?
Do you want to make it?
You need to make it. I can't make it.
I move that this hearing be reopened for questioning.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, please state aye and raise your hand indicating so.
Aye.
Please reopen the hearing. So we have a question for staff.
So-
What was the original limitation on height for this CI 35 that it was currently under?
It's 45 foot in height.
45 feet. Okay. Any other questions while we're open?
Yes, can we please get the elevation along Tampa Street that shows the heights and the setbacks, at least from the Free Library?
It's this one, actually.
What's the height of the Free Library? It's very small that you have there in your drawing.
I don't know the height of the Free Library off the top of my head.
Well, it's right there in your drawing. It's just really small. See right there?
I see. Well,
Yep.
and not including the very top.
You don't usually-
40 feet,
Close to
5
40.
inches.
Okay.
And the new development?
74 foot 1 at this particular part. It's 86 to the top of the elevator housing and little penthouse piece.
We don't usually count those.
Yeah,
if
it's
less than
under
20%.
under 20%, yes.
Yeah. So what was the height, I'm sorry, you said?
It says 74'1"
And that was where, right there?
from here to here.
And that's the highest from the street, right? The tallest from, we talked about the
Yeah, at
elevation
this-
change.
At this particular location, the grade changes a little bit on this side.
Okay.
The natural grade is here, and that's where the building kind of juts in, like it does on the other lot across the street.
Any other questions while we have this open? You can ask staff anything that might come into your head.
What type of authority do we have to limit the height?
This is Kamaria Pettis-Malcolm from the City Attorney's Office. She's presenting the overall, height. If the board wants to discuss height with staff, you can propose what you're asking, but with the PDA, they're asking for what's proposed on the site plan. If the board wants to discuss something smaller in height, you could certainly discuss that as a board, but this process, you're approving what's being presented. Well, you're making a motion to recommend or not recommend city council.
The way it's been proposed?
Right.
I understand.
Right.
Okay.
So I've got a question for staff. Can we put numbers on this request or conditions potentially that would step the height some amount of distance from the existing historic structures?
That's what this presentation is for. So you saw their request. If you feel uncomfortable with certain sections as it relates to the contributing structures, maybe it could be stepped down. Be specific in your interpretation and your motion moving forward. That's the one that staff will take to city council.
So we can condition it?
You can make a condition in your recommendation, and it's ultimately up to city council on whether or not
Right.
the recommend, how they proceed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? All good?
Now that you've opened it, though, can you allow the,
Oh, I'm so sorry. Ms. Chloe, you do have another rebuttal opportunity. I'm like saying it funny.
Go ahead.
Mr.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak just before the rebuttal,
Yes,
so there's
please.
not a need for another rebuttal.
Yes, please.
I just want to emphasize that the motion that you make needs to be specific, clearly articulated so that city council understands how you would like that reflected on a site plan. Often with motions, they get, a little bit difficult to convey to city council during a public hearing. So if you have specific numbers or distances or percentages, that's helpful. And then normally they do want to see something that is fixed and not open-ended. So keep that in mind as you consider motion making.
Thank you, Dennis. Now, Ms. Chloe.
Thank you. The only thing I would point out, if we're looking for proportion, the width of this face is approximately 40 feet as well. And we are stepping back at that 3-story level more than that face width. So when we get into the conversation about how much farther to put it away, what is proportional to the width of that face along that street? And how much of that building building potential are we gonna lose from that? Which almost would render it not functional for the proposed use. Because it is a very narrow lot. Even though it's wide on Tampa, it's very narrow. And it is trying to function for a hotel use. This is a very intense category. It's CC 35 land use, community, commercial, which allows everything up to CI, which is commercial intensive, which allows even some light industrial uses. As it interfaces with the buildings across the street as well, although not historic, it is creating continuity in that vista, that view down Tampa Street in that corridor. So I would just register an objection if we're going to make this step back away from this building any more than the 100+% that it already is at that same level. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Great. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, or this portion of the public hearing, and go back to commissioners discussing. Any other comments or?
We're referring to the last sentence, several sentences about continuity of what's happening across the street. I feel like this is almost going to create, at this mass and this scale, a tunnel or a bowling alley, kind of feel driving up the street, which I just have to question whether or not we think the historic district benefits from that.
We run into this, it seems, on every border type property, where these days developers are always trying to maximize what they can put on a piece of property. From a capital standpoint, it makes absolute sense why. And on one side of the street, they can do what they want because they don't fall in the district. And on the other side of the street, they have to come in front of, us. So we have to be, as a commission, a little sensitive to obviously how we figure out this transition. Unfortunately, the presentation tonight, because of where they're at in the process,
It's vagueness.
it's almost handcuffed us because what we're looking at is a box. And she mentioned that they're looking to use this parcel for a boutique hotel, which tells me the end result's not going to be a box. But that's what we're seeing right now.
I don't know that you're not going to have a box at the end result, because seeing the language of what's existing from this particular developer right across the street.
Across the street,
My
it's a box.
concern is, if it's that use, where's the parking? That's number one. And number two, the concern about, that you brought up about the firewall and separations and things like that. If indeed that is something that has to be applied, and then they have to play with the mass a little bit more to get the units they need for it to be viable from an ROI standpoint, they could come back and really be able to adjust that height any way that they want to within the zoning. And from what I know, they can certainly exceed that 74 feet. I mean, we've seen it with another site not that far away. So, I don't know. The PDA process is a really tricky thing because it's very open-ended, and it puts us in a really complicated position, I think.
Well, and in this particular example, we're stepping back 30 feet, but unfortunately, the building is double the height of the building that's right next door. And it's 3 to 4 times as long.
And it's not stepping back from the street front. It's not, there's no massing, stepping back along Tampa, where you would go to the certain height that reflects or honors a historic district and then set back from there and create a rooftop patio or something else like that, and then the massing could go higher. I think there's a serious problem with the envelope, proposed envelope size and shape on this property, personally.
Well, and that was one of the reasons I was asking how we could write a motion of recommendation potentially by stepping it back, because you could have the rooftop scenarios, pools, whatever, to where it was limited at that 35, 40 feet, but then 100 feet away. But unfortunately, that's not what is in front of us right now.
Well, Kamaria Pettisnacker from the City Attorney's Office. So as Mr. Fernandez previously stated, if you want to specifically address the height and the setbacks, you have to be specific with that request. But I want to also just reiterate that this is just the envelope that you're trying to recommend City Council approve or not approve. The other issues associated with that, Madam Chair mentioned like parking or the firewall, that as the applicant stated, she has to address those issues. moving forward with the project. So again, this is just the overall envelope, or someone, I forgot the word that someone described it, but this is just the overall project and where you're determining whether or not it meets the requirement as outlined in your staff report of 27113A2J.
I think I'm comfortable with it from a horizontal, because I know that code's gonna come into play and make them massage, especially where it meets the two adjacent buildings. I'm with you in terms, and I think three others had said they were a little uncomfortable with the height. I do think if we had some language that was very clear about the setback, that maybe we used both historic buildings that are in situ currently as those boundaries for the lower elevations, and then that the building should step back to the north, should step higher to the north, so that as it comes to the, I forget, it was something oil company and the free
Giant.
library, it steps down and respects those elevations.
So from the south to the north, or from the Tampa Street, what is that, the west to the east?
So
Kinda like
it's,
that.
it's,
concerns about Tampa Street stepping back.
Can you turn your microphone off?
I do have concerns about, in both realms, that it step from south to north, up in height.
but
And
it wasn't zero lot line on Tampa. They had setback from Tampa.
I understand the setback from the street, but then it's a sheer wall and doesn't,
Straight up to
and it's
74
straight up
feet.
to
Well, then we
its
could
full
put-
maximum height.
We could put language in there to ask them to
That the
accommodate.
Tampa elevation have a height limitation on the setback line at Tampa. And then step back from there at the maximum height of the previous zoning level of 45 feet.
I think you have to be careful about,
I think the matter of care is something that I think we need to address a little bit here. We are neither the planners, the architects, nor the designers for this development.
yep.
And as majority designers and builders ourselves, we are parsing out all sorts of variations that, to me right now, would be very difficult to, if you will, nail down and codify.
Right.
These are elements that should be presented to us. And in part, some of it has been right now. And since we are not in a position to redesign this project, nor agree amongst ourselves as to exactly how we would want to do that, perhaps this project might need to get revised and brought back to us.
It's, again, we're just, you're not talking about, this is just approving the envelope. And if you want to discuss specifics on how to address the heights and the setbacks, they can address the design.
We're giving them clear direction on the zoning, because it is a PD, because it is. A PDA, excuse me, yes, exactly. Because it is a PDA, they can establish their own setbacks, they can establish their own heights. So this is the time where we can recommend some conditions be applied for its approval. In regarding to its height, its mass, and its setbacks. We can't do a lot of play from an architectural perspective. That's gonna come, and because it's a PDA, they have to come before us again. They can't just move forward and start designing.
I agree, but what I see right now is this interim preliminary stage, an envelope that's wrong.
So it's not the building envelope, it's a site limit that they are allowed to use. That's what we're establishing today.
Correct.
How high they can go, how wide they can go, how long they can go. We are
So-
not telling
I
them
think-
that the walls have to go in and out every 5 feet, a depth of 2 feet. We're not telling them that. That will come in the next few reviews.
So at
Because
the-
they have to go through the site plan, and then they have to go through the design.
So at the ground level, are we good with the proposed setbacks that have been proposed today?
Setbacks, yes, I think it's the height, right? Issue.
Well, I'm asking that question first.
Okay, setbacks. I am.
As I said previously, the two abutting property setbacks, they have another layer of code
Yes.
review
Correct.
they have to go through to know where they can
Well, they've got a lot
actually
going on.
be.
They've got to meet transportation, they got to meet parking, they
Exactly.
got to meet fire code, they got to,
So when
a
it
laundry list.
when it comes to the two primary, the primary and the secondary, which is Oak and Tampa, right? I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah, you're right.
It's Oak, right? I did note that they had setbacks off the property lines. They're not zero lot. And I remember one being 8, and I thought one was 8 and 10, based on the way
Accurate.
the building was moving. So it's not zero lot. I'm comfortable with that. That's more than we got from a couple of developers not that long ago that we had to push back on. So setback wise, I'm comfortable. I hope all of us can be comfortable with that, because we've had worse.
Well, yeah,
On the
and they
edge.
are coming back in front of us, so we will be
Yeah.
able to see what the final design is at a later date and potentially have that conversation then. But that leads into the height. Are
Right.
we good with the height going above what they currently could go to with the zoning that's currently on the property?
Which is 45 up to 74 proposed. So I think we
Which
just.
is not twice what they can do now. It's only what, 1.5 times? So,
45 to 74.
Mhm.
right,
About 1.5.
it's about 1.5, yeah. Wasn't very precise. But what I do think, and for me, it is an urban environment, it's an urban corridor, I get that argument. But I do think from a historic perspective, when we're talking about massing and we're looking at the context of the block, and then the block in relationship to the surrounding streets, knowing that there are a lot of empty lots and we don't know what's gonna come, but we do have these two jewel boxes that are left over from a historic period that we are charged with respecting and asking those who come before us to respect. I think we can use those as elements to set some sort of language in the motion if we're going to move this forward for recommending approval that could ask the respondents to consider the height not being any higher than, the two existing structures, and then allowing them to step to the north higher as they go.
So we're talking about an additional 29 feet from 45 to 74. If we're going to be specific with conditions, we gotta figure out those numbers.
If you have something specific that you think you need to state so that we can consider it, this is the time to do it.
I hate to introduce something at this late date.
Oh, gosh.
However, I believe that I don't know what the setback is for the free library along Tampa Street. But it pulls back quite a bit from the street, if I am remembering correctly.
So I would like to point out the historic map that's in
Oh,
front
there
of
we
you.
are. Yeah.
So those were single residential units, and they hugged the street. They were probably within no more than 10 feet from the street edge. So whenever we talk about setbacks in our historic districts, we look to the historic record, and then whatever exists, and then we ask for an averaging of those setbacks. And also, the free library at that point, that's their side setback. And we're
Right.
talking about a front setback.
Yeah, I don't have a lot, the concern for me is not the distance from the road. Because I think if you take some of the height away, that doesn't become as important. It's a commercial corridor with,
So do we take it down halfway, go to 15 feet? I mean, we have to be specific. At least as a recommendation, this is up to city council.
within, and I'm just throwing a number out there.
Yep.
But within 30% of the distance from the free library, I feel like that height needs to be similar. And then from there, we could step it up to some max, whether that number is 60 feet, 55 feet. You know, and in my head as a builder, every 10 feet, I'm thinking floors. So, you know, at 74 feet, they're trying to get 7 floors. You know, realistically, probably 6, with the lobby area going to be taller. You know, now we're looking at 4. But for me, visually, that's easy for me to kind of figure out how much we're bringing it down.
But how the pro formas for hotels work is that
Can you turn your microphone on?
Yeah, I'm sorry. The pro forma, as far as hotels are concerned, they're very dependent upon the number of keys and the cost per key and everything else like that with the
It's
hotel.
also the configuration of the rooms, whether they're suites or not. That's how they put their pro
Yeah.
formas together.
Can you turn your microphone on?
It was on, got cut off. I don't think, you know, our concern is, I understand the performers and the hotel building industry, but regardless of the use, it's just like what it's on now, it can be used for a lot of things. That's not my concern sitting up here today. It's, what's the building gonna look like? What's the size of the building?
We
What's the
didn't even
mass
need
of
to
the
know the
building?
use for today.
Yeah, I
so-
could care less. I'm looking at the massing.
Right.
And how's it gonna dwarf what is already there that's created? This, like you said, it's the gem that's left. So being it's there, we need to use it as our precedent for what we can do, or what they can do to design around it. What we're governed right now to do is
So-
figure out what that
So,
is.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the City Attorney's Office. Previously, in previous recommendations to City Council, this board has placed a condition to be able to adjust the height. You know, you previously, I think, been given, gave like 5% adjustment of the height as a, you know, condition to put that on the site plan, for the board to be able to adjust the height when it comes back for certificate of appropriateness.
You mean giving us the wiggle room
Yes.
and jurisdiction to move around within 5%?
Yes, or whatever this board is considering, that could be a way to address the height concern from the board.
So then we would be able to see the design plan and everything at the CA and deal with it then, rather than right now, which we really don't know what it's gonna look like. We could have
Right.
an idea, but we don't really know.
Yeah, what we're having to figure out right now is what is that max number that then we are then going to potentially put a variation percentage to.
Well, I think there are two things here, because we've been talking about how close it gets to the historic buildings with the higher height. It doesn't matter what that elevation ultimately is, because if I told you 65, you would still tell me it's too high. That's my feel. So I think there's still a question here of how close can a taller component get to the library and to the oil building? In your mind, as a commission, here tonight, what feels appropriate for this district and for this specific location, right?
As well, and I agree with that, as well as how well the historic building is restored on the street
Yeah.
front, you know, or is respected on the street front, which is the side of the free library. As you're coming south on Tampa, is it completely obscured from view until you're right next to it because there's a sheer wall that goes up?
Well,
on Tampa.
You know, are
10
you
feet
asking
back
for
or
a
8
view
feet back or-
corridor? Because then that's a very complicated thing that you can't just throw. I went through the planning for the replanning of Curtis Hickson in tandem with the Children's Museum. I was an architect on that project. And it was a very long, drawn-out, complicated process to get the view corridors correct for all the minarets at UT. And it changed our design a lot. And it changed our floor plates a lot.
And I went through the same thing with the Raphael Vignoli version.
Yeah,
I was the
yeah,
architect
that's
on
right.
that.
You and I were on that for a little while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, we were on the
So
opposite end.
I don't know if we can throw in a view corridor here. I don't even know. The thing with the free library, it's its front elevation that's the most precious.
That faces south,
And
right.
so it faces away from the way that you would approach this project coming down Tampa.
Unless, of course, you have a big blank wall behind it.
You don't see the front of the library coming from,
Because it's a one-way street.
yeah, it's a one-way street. Tampa Street goes the wrong way, so you don't see the front of the building.
So I kind of like the idea that Kamaria proposed, like giving us a wiggle room to change things once it comes in front of us for the CA.
It will not, I just want to caution, it will not allow the commission, whoever sits on the commission when that comes back, to move the line.
The setback, no, but the height.
No, I'm saying, so if you remember the building design, well, the envelope that was presented here today had a lower elevation and then a higher elevation, right? And the lower was closer to the library, but it didn't completely move over to allow that oil building to sort of have breathing room. It was just shy of the edge of the oil building, so it kind of is overlapping it when you look at it in plan.
Okay.
So, if the discussion point has been allowing those historic components to not feel crowded in and forgotten, that's an element I'm gonna be very honest with. If I'm on the commission during the certificate of appropriateness discussion, it's gonna be something that I'm just gonna be very uncomfortable with, knowing that we could have had an opportunity in this motion to add some kind of language to pull that back and allow that facade to breathe more. It's not a blank wall, not like a typical alley elevation. It's got, there are windows in there, and they're actually quite nice. So I just think about those things when I'm thinking about it from a massing perspective, and I think very three-dimensionally, obviously. So I just imagine how you view that. And another thing we have to consider is that even though this is a one-way now, it doesn't mean it's gonna be a one-way forever. And we hope that there's more pedestrian and other non-vehicular activities. So we really need to think about how our buildings play with one another when they come.
Would language being something along the lines of that the height of the building could not be any higher than either of the two historic structures until it's north, till a line, a projected line along the north edge of the
Yeah, I mean,
northernmost existing
you
building.
could be that specific, and I have to say honestly, I don't think we've been specific enough in past motions to the council. So I would welcome a very specific recommendation with specific conditions to the recommendation if we move that forward.
I like that idea.
And I agree with the setback, like you're saying,
Behind the oil building.
both buildings.
Yeah.
The side and
That any portion that's adjacent to either of those two buildings not be higher than the original 45 feet zoning height
I would
restriction.
agree with that. I
and
could
give it
agree
some
with that.
breathing room at the ground level. I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say,
Yeah.
is just move that wall back away, which
Well, we're
we
not
all
moving the
know.
wall.
No,
We're
it's
just
not the
changing the
wall,
height.
it's just the up where it starts the higher elevation, just pushing that back up to the north just a tad. It's
To the
probably
end of
maybe
the oil
5
building.
feet more, but it'll feel better, I think.
Okay, say that one more time.
That the maximum height of the PD allowable envelope be no higher than the prior.
No, he's.
No,
we're
I'm-
talking
I'm
about
telling her
language.
They're writing the statement that we're all gonna agree with before it gets.
But the max height of the new structure,
Not be any higher than the original 45 feet
not exceed.
From a point,
from a point of adjacency to either the north wall of the.
the
which
oil
one?
building, I
The
don't remember what the
oil
oil
building.
building was.
Giant oil,
Giant
Giant
oil, thank
oil.
you.
historic structures.
Of, and I'm trying to think of.
And those buildings are not currently 45 feet.
No, but 45
Is
feet is
the current
allowable under
zoning.
the current
Yeah.
zoning.
The current CI,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
Okay, so the max height of the new structure is not to exceed 45 feet from all adjacent points of the current historic structures. Was that enough?
From the southern boundary of the property to the point
From the southern
Parallel
parallel to the
Northern-
north face
of the.
Hold on.
Yeah,
giant oil building.
yes.
From the southern,
Defines what I was
Not the
referring to.
southern, the northern face.
no, from the southern point of the.
Oh, the parcel.
From,
Of the-
yeah, of the parcel.
Property.
From, is that Seventh? No, that's Oak. What is that? Right
It's an
here.
alley.
It's an
No,
alley.
alley.
Facing the alley, okay.
Can we attach in a graphic? We've got AXO up here, we've
Facing
got
the
a
alley
site plan.
Two, okay, so from the
To
southern
the-
point of the parcel facing the
to-
alley
To parallel to the north face of the
Giant oil.
giant oil building,
parallel of
To the north facade.
north
extended.
face of the giant oil building. We all good with that? And then the rest of it,
Don't forget that we are recommending that note number 73
be
be
removed, yeah.
removed, yep.
Okay, but then the rest of the building, we're okay with the proposed 74 feet or up to the 86?
Well, it's 86
That's like that very top cylinder.
as the
You,
topo changes. It
Yeah.
goes from 74 to.
I also think
86,
it
I believe.
incorporated the penthouse, and the penthouse is less than 20% of the
Correct.
overall roof, so we don't
Right.
count
It
it in our
doesn't
calcs.
So
Right,
74
is the height.
not to exceed 74. I mean, I just think it should be that specific, not to exceed the 74 feet proposed tonight.
I'm comfortable with that.
Do you want to have any wiggle room on street frontages?
I think so.
I think that will come in the CA. We're telling them they can't go any further than the 8 feet or 10 feet from the property line.
I think we can say that the conditions presented can remain as they presented, besides this one condition that we're making.
Conditions presented.
Well, no, I mean, not conditions, but the setbacks and the massing and the heights and all the other conditions in their site plan that they presented tonight.
Well, I'm gonna actually be very specific and say 74 because that's what was proposed, and I don't know what the actual limits are. Right?
We're creating that.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackle from the city attorney's office. So the applicant, the agent, has presented the setbacks already.
Yep.
No, right, we're discussing height, max height.
Right, but I believe Commissioner Taylor was talking about the setbacks.
Well, she was saying she didn't know what was allowable, and I was talking about the height, and I was saying we're creating that.
Right.
So whatever number we put,
Right.
we're now creating what that height can be at that location.
We're recommending, yeah.
If we're okay with the setbacks the way they were presented, then we're
We're only
allowing them to move forward with those
Right, I'm not gonna even
setbacks as
mention that as
well.
a condition because,
Well, there is no condition on that, right? Right now, at this point.
exactly.
We were fine with the setbacks. It was the height, and I think we have language for that
Does
now.
it all work? Okay.
Yeah?
Everybody good? I mean, I'm ready. Y'all ready?
Okay. Are we good? Okay.
Okay. Bear with me here. Okay. I move to recommend to City
If
Council.
I may, point of order, I just have a question, because there's a whole new discussion that has happened with this condition.
We probably
And I feel like I
should.
need to address this because these are,
We can
Can I
reopen.
have
a
a
very
motion,
arbitrary
please,
discussion
to
up to this
reopen the hearing?
I move to reopen the public hearing.
And a second,
I'll
please.
second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye and indicate so by raising your
Thank-
hand. Aye.
thank you. I just have to say for the record, and I still haven't even necessarily understood what the condition actually would be. But for the record, just to remind the commission, specifically for a PDA, the actual purpose and intent of the PDA is to allow for a conceptual level of approval, thereby maintaining design flexibility, so on and so forth. It's a conceptual plan. I would like to reiterate, because you were speaking about what could happen in the rest of the corridor and how it applies. This is the only portion of the district. The block to the north is not in the district, the block to the south is not in the district. It only. I'm sorry, the block to the north is not in the district, the block to the
We
south.
can't see
Pull it
the,
down, sorry.
Sorry about that. Not in the district, not in the district. It's literally only wrapping around our parcel, right here. So the rest of the corridor can come in and rezone, you won't have a say whatsoever in what happens in that. I would like to also remind you, this particular parcel, and when we get into restricting the step back and cutting out a portion of the building, because this is conceptual, this building is not designed. That's the nature of the PDA. We are subject to your design standards and your certificate of appropriateness process. I can't tell you if this building is gonna function. Your role here is to recommend reasonable land use changes. And specifically, it says, in accordance with the applicable design standards in paragraph J, to review and recommend reasonable land use changes to the extent necessary to preserve historical integrity, blah, 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 in accordance with applicable design standards. I have not heard to this point any specific reference to Tampa Heights Historic District standards, specific criteria where carving out that portion of the building actually meets that standard. This building is not designed. I can't tell you that it's gonna function with a portion of the building missing for loading, for fire, for overhead, for solid waste. I don't think this is the appropriate place. I do think it's in the certificate of appropriateness. And again, just to remind you, this parcel is only 16,000 square feet. It's a very, very small parcel. With that, I'll listen to the motion, and I guess I have to let you know whether or not we agree to it, or is it just part of your condition?
It's a condition for a recommendation.
Okay.
So if they do recommend city council approve it, so if you don't accept the condition, then you could state that you
Okay.
don't accept the condition. But again, this is just at the stage of making a recommendation to city
Right.
council.
Okay, just procedurally, I think if you are gonna make that type of recommendation and cutting out portions of the building, I think by your own rules, you need to cite what part of the applicable standards it actually meets. And you are not at that point right now to actually make that review and to make those findings. This is a bubble plan. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to close this, the public hearing. I just wanted to say something to what was just said. Yes, we are bound by specific districts in terms of what are in their design guidelines. All the districts discuss in all of their guidelines, massing, as well as setback, height, and relationship to adjacent properties. Whether or not there are other historic properties in the next block or across the street, doesn't matter. We have to think about the parcel and its adjacent properties. It has two historic structures. Those historic structures matter. They're contributing structures. The free library is referenced continuously. It is something that Franklin Street owes a lot to in its journey. So I do want to state that we consider those things continuously when we think about the projects that come in front of us. This is not a personal issue for many of us. Many of us practice and have practiced on historic properties. So we understand the issues. I've come before this board before, this commission before. So I think we understand that, and what we are discussing tonight is relevant to both this specific historic district and the others that come under our purview. We have a number of developers, as you know, I mean, you have the client you have tonight, who do come before us. And we understand, and you've heard us all discuss it, we understand pro formas. We work with developers ourselves. So we understand the ROIs, but we also have we've been charged with our volunteer efforts here to think about these districts and why they're here in the first place. So we try to do our jobs as best we can to balance all of those. So if we're ready for a motion.
Anything additional we need to discuss amongst ourselves?
Do we?
I'd like to concur that, you know, the specific historic district guidelines include massing, respect for adjacent structures, except, you know, multiple things that we've been discussing tonight. So it's totally acceptable for us to place such a restriction on a PD inside of a historic district that honors those guideline requirements.
And it's a PDA, just as a reminder, it's not a PD.
PD, got it.
Our charge is the historic district itself. How it jogs here and there and what properties it encompasses is not what we're doing. So regardless, I think everything, again, we've discussed is pertinent to this particular case. Another one may come in front of us next month that's just like it on a different parcel and may be totally different at the end of the day. But this one in particular, the massing just seems to be off. And I think we've come to a resolution of how we can see this thing moving forward.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to make clear too is we're not saying that the building has to be erased from a quarter of the site. We're just saying the elevation, the height needs to be reconsidered. Okay, sorry.
No problem. Okay, I move to recommend City Council approve ARC 22-231-REZ 21-87 for the property located at 1910 North Ola Avenue for the proposed rezoning from CI/PDA to PDA. With the following conditions, that note number 73 be stricken, the waiver be stricken, and that the max height of the new structure not exceed 45 feet from all adjacent historic structures from the southern point of the parcel, which faces the alley, to the north, to the north face of the adjacent historic parcel, the giant oil building. Does that make sense? And that the remainder of the new proposed structure not exceed the 74 feet proposed tonight in this plan that was presented before us. For the reasons that the massing of the structure and the relationship to the adjacent historic structures, that we are preserving the historic integrity of the Tampa Heights Historic District.
Second.
I'll second that.
Do you understand the conditions placed in this recommendation?
Yes, thank you, I do. In the elevation, it's 74'1". In the table, it's 86 feet to the peak, given the grade change. So I would request that it actually stays the 86 that's in the table.
That was at its highest point when it goes down the street.
Yes.
But that was
Okay,
to the
I will
elevator
amend-
penthouse.
I will amend the motion to include that the structure not exceed the 74'1" proposed rest of the structure, in addition to, at the highest point, 86 feet of the penthouse elevator portion.
I don't think that sounds right. I'm sorry, but we need to step back. I need to reopen the hearing because I want to ask that question one more time. Can someone please make a motion?
I mean,
Well, no, hold on a second. Oh, a motion to open up the public hearing.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to reopen the public.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
So can you please come back up with your elevation, show where the 86 feet is, just to be clear?
Again, Catherine Crowell for the record, 86 feet is what is actually in the dimensional table on sheet 5, I believe, of the plan. This particular elevation at this point measures out, in this elevation, it's 74 foot 1 inch to the alley on this
So-
particular side.
What is the 86 feet about then? You said it's in a table. What table is that? And why
Sheet
does it?
5, the dimensional standards table where it calls out what the setbacks are, it's on sheet 5, I believe.
Can you show that again, please?
Let me just pull it up really fast.
To be clear, this dimensional table is part of the design guidelines for the overall PDA that were approved previously.
Yes. This is the table. It goes by street classification, Tampa Street being added with the setback, interior yards, maximum height. The Tampa Street frontage is 86 feet.
But that was not under the current CC. It's under what you're requesting today, correct?
That's correct. That's
So,
part of the
okay.
request.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Go ahead, ask a question. Turn your finger.
I just wanted to clarify, that said, that pertained to tract 3,
Which is the one we're talking about
and we
today.
are specifically talking about tract 3 only?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So it didn't exist, it's requested with this PDA, the 86 feet.
That's part of the request.
Correct.
And
Good?
it, specifically, it says along the Tampa Street frontage because the grade is so low to the top. 74 is on the side.
Is it actually 10 feet or 12 feet, though? Do you know that elevation differential from one end to the other?
It's it's a little over 6 feet, I believe, according to the contour map. It might even be more in some spots, but it kind of undulates.
Well,
It's pretty-
its low point is at the south end of the property, and then it raises as it goes to the north end of the property. It also
And
raises
it
from the
raises to the
west
east.
to the
That's
east.
correct.
Correct. So the far northeast corner would actually essentially be the lowest height, and the southeast corner, or southwest corner,
The lowest
adjacent
elevation.
would be, no, would be the lowest elevation
Yes,
of
yes, yes.
grade, but the highest
Highest
elevation of the
building.
building.
Correct.
Okay? But we're already restricting that height,
Yes,
okay? By our condition, within a certain distance of the historic properties.
correct.
Okay, so I don't have a problem with 86 feet personally.
Okay, I think we're done with questions. Thank you so much.
If I-
Rebuttal?
If I could really quick just ask, it sounded like in your condition, you were saying.
Can you
from
zoom that out a little bit, because
Yeah.
we can't see what you're drawing from? Yes, that's correct.
Right here. So this portion is what you're saying, 45
Yes.
feet. And the rest of it, the 86, if that's,
Correct,
okay. Got it.
correct.
Thank you.
That's why we asked if we could attach visuals. Okay, we're good now? Can I close it?
And that was a part of your, rebuttal?
Hold on, what is
Or
it?
were you,
You were good with the rebuttal? Did you have a rebuttal? Because you have this opportunity for one.
The rebuttal that I would have is that we don't necessarily agree with the condition, but we will handle it in the rezoning hearing.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing then, and we'll discuss the case before we make a motion.
Question now.
Two?
I'm changing the 74 feet to 86 feet, but does that then give, hold on, hear me out. Does that then give them the flexibility to completely redesign and move everything to 86 feet and not?
No, it is
Okay.
it is the highest elevation of the building. So what John was pointing out was that corner, the southwest corner, which is the end closest to the free library,
Okay.
would be the highest height. Right, allowable. And at the end, which
Because it
is
goes
the
higher.
northeast corner, would be the lowest. It's the highest part of the site, but it would be the lowest elevation. If that is 8 feet or 10 feet, if it's 10 feet, they can't be more than 76 feet over here.
Okay.
Do we understand?
Not really, but if you do. I'm just
So-
the attorney on that.
So let me just say something again. In the answer to the question about, was that something that existed in the design guidelines that was previously approved? It was not previously approved. It is something we're requesting
Proposed, yes.
today. So, if the elevation, and since they don't know the elevation change across, at least we didn't hear that tonight, what that elevation change is, it can vary from 6 to 12 feet, we don't know. So just take that into consideration.
So as the land does this, the building's getting taller is basically
Right.
what we're.
Because we're taking.
So what we
into
saw,
Got it, yeah, yeah.
what we saw in the bubble elevation, which I have to say that is not a bubble, that is design development, way down the pike. But, that was 74 feet. We're saying that they can go as high as 86. That's another 12 feet. So I just want you all to be
That's
mindful.
what, okay, there, that's what I'm trying to get across.
Mindful of what was just stated.
Exactly. Okay, everybody's still good with that.
86 feet or 74 feet?
No, I have no problem with 86 feet on the north end of the property, which is where it is.
I don't want 86 feet on the north end of the property. We were talking about 74 feet on the south end. That's what was presented.
Yeah, that's a whole.
Do you understand what you just said? You just
I
gave
do,
her
I
another
do, I
10
do.
10
No,
to 12
no, no, no.
feet.
It would be 86 feet max.
At the south end, not the north end. Free library end.
But that 86 feet point can't happen at the south end of the site because we're already.
45.
Right, we're saying.
We're already proposing a
We're
45.
agreeing with that.
Right, right. So it's not 86 feet there, it's 86 feet on the northern half of the building or whatever at the most, from the southern west, southwest corner of the property. But the only part that can go up that high is the northern half of the building.
That's true.
What you're saying is very confusing. The max allowable height, if we say it's 86 feet, can only happen at the lowest part of the site, which will be by the,
The southwest corner.
right. So the north will not be 86 feet ever.
It'll be 86 feet from the southwest corner.
Yeah, but that's not how we measure that. Come on, John.
So are you more comfortable saying 74 feet across the board?
No, I'm just questioning, okay? We saw presented here an elevation that said 74
Right.
feet, 1 inches. Now we're being told the actual request was 86 feet, so it was not represented correctly on the elevation. That's my point here. So,
my
are
point
we
too.
agreeing to 74 or 86?
Yeah, what they showed, I mean, what they're asking for in the request
It's
is another floor.
12 feet higher, yes. So that's, and remember, we are saying in our recommendation to push the building, the lower part of the building over a skosh to give more room,
Right.
more relief to and respect to the historic property. So, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I just want confirmation that everyone's comfortable if we put 86 in. That's all I'm saying, and that you understand what that means.
So
Okay.
that difference, because we talked about.
It's a floor. It's just
a
a floor.
I understand.
But to them,
No, but
it matters.
from 45 to 86, I mean,
74 to 86 is another floor. That's what it means.
yeah.
From an
But then
architecture.
from 45 to 86, imagine, because we're saying,
Well, that's,
whatever.
yeah, we're beyond discussing
Yeah, yeah,
that change. That,
This
but
is a big,
this is adding a floor
Yeah.
to the north half of the building, basically,
yeah,
allowing that.
right.
Yeah.
It allows them that wiggle room, which
Right.
I'm fine with. I just want
I'm okay
everybody
with it
else to
also.
be clear with what they're asking for.
I'm okay with it also because we're asking them to reduce the height of the southern
Correct.
part of the building. So I'm
Correct.
okay with
We're
that.
giving them some compromise.
Yeah.
Okay, let me redo my essay here. I move to recommend City Council approve ARC 22-231/REZ 21-87 for the property located at 1910 North Ola Avenue for the proposed rezoning from CI/PDA to PDA. with the following conditions: that note 73, the waiver be stricken, and that the max height of the new structure not exceed 45 feet from all adjacent corners of the historic structures from the southern point of the structure of the parcel facing the alley to the north face of the giant oil building, the historic oil building. And that the remaining part of the new structure not exceed the 86 feet as it is proposed. Because the massing and relationship of the new structure to the adjacent historic structures is more compatible and preserves the historic integrity of the Tampa Heights Historic District.
I second the motion.
Ms. Coyne, do you understand the conditions set forth?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, please state aye. Raise your hand indicating so aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries 5-1.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Elaine Lund, Historic Preservation Staff. The final item on the agenda this evening is another recommendation, ARC 22-288/REZ 22-06 at the address of 407 East Palm Avenue in the Tampa Heights Historic District. The recommendation here is for the request to rezone from RM24 to PD. This property is a contributing structure in the Tampa Heights Historic District, and I'll move to the photo presentation now. You can see it here on the 1920 Sanborn map, shown highlighted in green. This is not very far from the other applications that you have seen here tonight, just a few blocks to the east. However, this is a residence or former residence that has been under rehabilitation for a good while now. Let's see, moving along. Again, it's in the south end of the Tampa Heights Historic District. Again, you can see it there in green on the south side of Palm Avenue, between Morgan Street and, between Jefferson Street and Central Avenue. You can see here the proximity to the interstate and the this is the front or the north elevation of the subject site. Here we are looking at the east side of the building. And then looking at the west side of the building. And this is the rear of the structure, the existing structure. Directly to the east of this building is a vacant lot. And then this is the structure, another contributing structure directly to the west. And these are the buildings across the street, one contributing structure, and I believe they might both be contributing structures. This view is looking east from in front of the subject site along Palm Avenue toward the interstate. And this view is looking west, so the subject site would be on your left. In the rear of the building, there's an alley. This is looking east along the alley toward Central Avenue. And then looking west here along the alley toward Jefferson Street. You can see that the alley is in good condition and is accessed by other buildings in this area. This is the property looking from the alley to the south. This is the adjacent property just to the west, and so you can see the parking area conditions behind this building. So at this time, I'd like to request that the applicant come forward and present the request.
if anything that's approved.
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mike Nolan, 2914 West Gandy Boulevard, 33611. I'm a civil engineer. I did a site plan for the PD rezone. I was asked by the owner, William Crescenzo at Interest Holdings, and his attorney, William Malloy, to come tonight and present to you for the ARC, ask for your recommendation to move forward to the City Council. I was gonna put the site plan up, zoom in and out. I had gone through the ARC staff report, and they had requested that we address, I think, the parking on the Palm Ave side. This building is just down the street from two other properties you guys were discussing tonight. It's pretty close to that intersection as the Franklin Wise off there near Florida Ave. Just go down a couple blocks on Palm. Around the property, on the west side here was another PD rezone where they did an office building there, and they put parking in the back. And I guess I think the owner was interested in trying to mimic that sort of development there. And on the east side here, maybe you might recall having a look at another PD rezone, which was residential with two accessory, it was like a duplex and two accessory units in the rear along the alley, which was approved. And so this project is just making use of the existing structure, the first floor to be renovated as office space to be rented out, and the second floor to be used as one residential unit. So this is the configuration we've come up with. The existing alley is improved. It's used by the adjacent structure there, or the adjacent development there. There's an existing, and we've proposed parking in the back that satisfies the City of Tampa requirement based on square footage of office space. And the parking in the back is for the office only. So we're satisfying the office requirement for the first floor. So the approximately 1,900 square feet requires that 7 spaces. The front of the building has an existing apron, and there was a kind of like a concrete driveway that was in use to some extent. I was going through the old aerial photos. I'm not even sure this is worth showing, but the 1984 photo, this is the building here, and you might have to trust me, but there's a car parked right here. I went back further and I couldn't find any other, there's like tree cover and everything. But the other interesting thing was that they were doing some renovations on the site. And this is on the east side of the building where we're showing the brick parking. Here, they had uncovered some historic brick pavement there. So we know that there was vehicular use of the area. I don't know honestly, how historic the apron is, but.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Kamaria Pettis-Mackel from the City Attorney's Office. Sir, and I apologize, I didn't catch your name again.
Mike Nolan.
Mr. Nolan, and you're the architect?
Civil engineer.
I'm sorry. In speaking with staff, your name is not listed as an authorized agent for this project.
Mm-hmm.
We have William Molly
Malloy, yeah.
as the authorized agent, and as a result, you don't have the authority to speak at this hearing today.
Okay.
So, as a result, this case is gonna have to get continued.
Wednesday. Oh, that's fine.
I mean, he doesn't have the authority to, you know, it just,
Okay, I understand. Let me just speak for a second. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. What I would recommend is that you continue this to Wednesday and then allow us the ability to contact the registered agent and see if they would like to come or assign this gentleman as agent. We only have 3 cases on Wednesday, so I think it's manageable to still hear that within this cycle.
All right. Can we go ahead and get a motion then to continue this to Wednesday's hearing for this week, July 13th, 2022, please?
I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 22-288/REZ 22-06 for the property located at 407 East Palm Avenue for the proposed rezoning, I'm sorry, got confused there.
It was a rezoning.
No, the continuation.
Oh, it's a continuation.
Let me start over. I move to grant a continuance in case ARC 22-288/REZ 22-06 for the property located at 407 East Palm Avenue to the July 13th, 2022 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
Have a second, please?
I'll second.
All in favor, please state aye, and raise your hand indicating so aye.
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 We'll see you Wednesday, maybe. Thank you. We are adjourned.